I remember walking girder beams, but the girder beams were 18 inches wide, so it wasn't really that big a deal just to walk across them. The span was 80, 100 feet, so it wasn't really that big a deal just to walk across it. But nowadays, man, you do that, you probably get kicked out.
We'd literally get up on the block, up on the ball of a hydro crane, a crawler crane, and if you had to get up, 3 or 4 stories, you get up there and you saddle around the sit on the headache ball and grab the cable and take a ride up, and that's just how everybody got up there.
It was not uncommon to have to get up and walk out on the runway and get across the beam, crawl across the beam to get to the hoist if it was broke down. So that was a common practice at that time. There was nowhere to tie off to at the time. They didn't have any safety lines on the runways or anything like that.
One time we were doing an inspection and I had an iron worker with me, and he goes, "Hey, are we inspecting the runways?" And I said, "Yeah, we're going to be inspecting the runways." And I turned and I went to grab a flashlight out of my bag and I looked, and I'm looking for my partner and he's gone and he's walking down the runway. About gave me a heart attack. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm inspecting a runway." So it was the norm. I mean, that's what it was.
I see the changes. I see the changes in the field. I see the changes in education. I see the changes in the, I guess, enforcement of the safety standards and the safety laws. So I believe it's evolving in the right direction.
Fall protection's changed quite a bit over the last several years, and we've advanced our products as well to meet those standards. So the standards have changed both from an OSHA standpoint, a little bit, but more on the ANSI side of things. And we actually participate on the ANSI board. I'm actually an ANSI board member for the fall protection Z359 standard for ANSI. So those changes have made quite a bit of difference in how we look at forces that are put on the systems, how we look at the equipment that is being attached to those systems, like harnesses and lanyards, and that's changed quite a bit over the years. As the test weights have become heavier, so we can address more accuracy in actually calculating forces on the systems, and a lot of times we're even for heavier people. There's the workforce isn't getting lighter in many cases, and that's been an issue both with ANSI and OSHA that they both have tried to address.
ANSI puts out standards faster than OSHA can update theirs. It takes a long time to go through and create new laws and go through that whole process. So the things that you find in an ANSI are going to probably more than likely be more effective than what you're going to find in an OSHA standard, just because we can't keep up to date with all the new ANSI standards that come out. So my key point on the ANSIs is the ANSIs, if there's something that's better than what's in the standard, you can go with the ANSI standard. If you're following the ANSI standard to a T, OSHA's not going to cite you for that, okay? Because every ANSI standard that comes out is at least as effective as the prior ANSI was. And the stuff that you find in an ANSI, it's a matter of time, but more than likely it will become an OSHA standard eventually. when you're looking at your fixed ladders and things of that nature. When you're talking like gantry cranes and tower cranes and something like that, that could be a really big issue. Looking at fall protection requirements there. Historically, they were fine with the cages that went around the ladders, and you could use that as your fall protection. Going forward, now any ladder, fixed ladder that's over 24 feet, you need to start using a ladder safety system where the employee would wear a body harness and have a fall prevention device that's attached to the harness, and there's typically either a cable or a rail that it's attached to. And if the person was to fall, that would stop them rather than the cage scenario.
The primary one that's going to have an impact, a lasting impact here at Nucor Steel, is the update to the ladder standard. The fact that we're going to be going away from, over the next 20 years, the ladder cages and going toward the personal ladder fall protection systems, for lack of a better term, the drop line style systems. That's primarily going to be the one that has the lasting effect. Far as what the rest of the standard is done, we really had put a lot of things into place in the last 6 or 7 years that precluded basically what they're looking at. We've tightened things up as far as the 6-foot shock absorbing lanyards. We've basically done away with those on site due to the fact that they didn't meet the needs that we had in terms of how we were trying to use fall protection on our site.
OSHA requires that every single person be trained and or retrained if they, anytime you introduce a new hazard, anytime you introduce a new piece of equipment. So anytime we introduce, okay, so say we have a fixed ladder and we add a fall protection system, guess what? Now we have to train on that fall protection system because it's new. It's something we haven't used before. And like we talked about earlier, now your harness has to have a front D-ring in order to use that ladder climbing system with a cable. So there's definitely some big, importance on education and training.
I think with the new fall protection standard that they've got in place, they closed up a number of different problems that there were. There were problems with the ladder grate or the ladder cage systems that were there. I've heard some people affectionately call those the cheese graters. They didn't really prevent someone from falling. They just simply localized the area that they were going to fall onto. And if the person happened to get their arm flailing around or a leg flailing around as they were falling, those things could potentially remove that body part. And so I think that's a big benefit that's going to happen as a result. They also looked at some of the tightening up some of the issues in terms of where handrails and things like that could be applied, whether or not you're looking at a chain gate and things along those lines. The openings for ladderways and stairways and things. I think they did a better job of identifying and simplifying whether or not there should be some form of protection in those kinds of situations as well.
The one thing I will say is it has gotten a little bit more complicated, and that can be a negative. So it's gotten more accurate and it is better, but what I find is that there's more confusion in the industry as far as what is the proper thing to be using and what is the proper equipment to use, who has the knowledge that you can bring in and talk about these concerns and issues, and so that has been a little bit more complicated, but overall the change that has been taking place in the industry has improved the success rate and survival rate of falls. I'd like to see more people using the product. There's still an issue with compliance, specifically on the construction side of things, even in general industry as well, but in general it's better than it used to be.
The technology is there now. And we talked earlier that when you look back 20 years ago, we had a belt and some rope and there you go. We didn't have the technology that we have today. And every time we look at equipment and every time we're designing equipment, we're designing it with specific industries in mind. We're working on that all the time, and all the manufacturers are doing the same thing. They're out in the field and they're saying, what do you need to do your job safely? What do you need to do your job more comfortably so that you'll use that piece of equipment? You know, we look at it as if it's comfortable and it's easy to use, they're gonna use it. If it's hard and it's annoying, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna find a way around it so that they don't have to use it. But all of the stuff that we're talking about is designed to save your life if inspected properly and worn properly. And at the end of the day, isn't that all that matters? Is that each one of us goes home at the end of the day? That's why I do what I do. That's why most of the team that I work with, that's why we do what we do every day. Because we're building equipment that, you know, and we're doing training and we're educating and we're out in the field, and we just want everybody to go home safe at the end of the day.
Safety is one of those things, the more sets of eyes you have looking at it, the more hazards you'll find to, you know, that you could be preventing employees from getting hurt from. It's, you know, it's good if a company has, you know, a dedicated safety person and they go through and they walk the facility, how often they do it. That safety person may catch most of the hazards, but somebody else is going to find different hazards because they're going to look at things a different way. And so I recommend to, you know, any company I'll go to, you know, have other people come through, be it, you know, your fire department, your insurance company, or private safety consultants. We're not trying to work against any private consultants or anything like that. We want to work with them too. The more people you have looking at your site, the more hazards you're going to find and be able to fix before it actually hurts somebody.
Everybody's got to pour their knowledge into and their experiences and come up with something that's getting better. And it's regulated and kind of policed, I guess would be best to say, by OSHA and ANSI. But I would say that the right behavior is for it to be policed from the ground up. So it takes time.
The thing with falls, with all the engineering controls that are out today, falls are preventable. I've yet to meet a situation where there's not some sort of fall protection that won't protect employees.